Hi friends, welcome to HR Resonance channel. My dear subscribers and viewers, for the last few days, you might have seen labor law, labor course, my series 1, 2, 3 videos, and many of you have posted comments and liking. Thank you very much. Today in this series and as a last part 4, way forward the code on wages 2019, I am submitting and presenting my views and some of the exception on this. I'll not go much into the detail of background. By this time you are already aware, but however, to make ease of the business and simplify 4 laws, that is payment of wages, minimum wages, payment of bonus, and equal remuneration act. These laws subsumed and made into the one law called Code on Wages 2019, and now shortly, probably by April 2021, it is going to come into the effect. This code is called very unique in the sense many good things are there which are all under the discussion now. Be aware, first of all, employee definition introduced covering all categories. So far, the laws pertaining to the employment, most of these laws were used to call as labor laws, and labors were protected. First time in this code, employee definition is introduced covering all categories: supervisory, technical, managerial. All these people are covered, and the provisions and benefits are applicable to all categories of employees. That's how one of the important aspect in this code which we must be aware. And also, though there is a definition of the worker excludes managerial and supervisory employees and includes sales promotion employees and working journalists, of course, with the wage cap. And there are 2 new concepts introduced in the definition of employer. That is, one is contractor as an employer and the legal representative of a deceased employer. It will be treated as an employer, and the contractor will also be liable for the implementation of the code. This is what one of the important aspects who should go to the message to all the concerned. And also the contract labor includes interstate migrant worker also. This is also one of the unique provision which extending the benefit to all the concerned. Then contractor in relation to the establishment is made very clear, supplies contract labor for any work of the establishment as a mere human resource and includes a subcontractor also. So this word one must really understand and keep, that is mere supply of human resource. That way it is clarity is made. Further, to see some of the definition, that too particularly of the wage, it is a very unique and specific, and wage definition which is inclusive, exclusive, and special part with a basic pay, allowances, and gratuity and retrenchment payments, and further ensures allowances not exceed 50% of the basic, which is unique. To say in a word, yeah, this is the peculiarity of the wage definition, which is very special. Then employee wage structure to be seen from 3 perspectives, friends, all the time. Number 1, in that wage, he takes home, and the second part is he pays something to government by way of tax, and in terms of saving, what is PF and gratuity. So these are normally in wage management we have to see and keep in mind. I think this part is taken care in the definition of this wage. Now coming to the Minimum Wage Act, the very unique which was talked for quite long to make a floor wage or uniform wage, which was talked about, that it has come into the reality or nearer to the reality. Payment of minimum rates of wages, it states no employer shall pay to any employee less than the minimum rate of wages notified by the appropriate government. Government is going to come with that. Already advisory board has been formed for that. The minimum rates of wages and fixed by the appropriate government under section 6 shall not be less than the floor wage by chance, or if the minimum rates of wages fixed by the appropriate government earlier is, if they are more than the floor wage, then the appropriate government shall not reduce such minimum rates of wages fixed by it earlier. In other words, if the floor wage is higher, that has to be followed, and the states can form their wages, but they cannot go less than that. And if it is already higher than floor wage, then that will continue. That is what one has to keep in mind. Then minimum rates of wages for piecework also. Section 12 it narrates where it is on piecework for which minimum time rate and not a minimum piece rate has been fixed under the code, the employer is required to pay to such person wages at no less than the minimum time rate. Thus, minimum wage is protected. And overtime twice the rate of the wages where person works in excess of the normal number of working hours. Of course, earlier provision is taken into that. And all these years, employees who were out of the ambit of minimum wages, henceforth, due to this code, they will get legislative protection of minimum wages irrespective of the category of the employees. And this would ensure that every employee and worker gets minimum wage, and it extends to qualitative living conditions across the country. That is what it is expected, and it will happen. Now, fixation of the time for the payment of the wages. Fixation of a wage period, that is, the employer shall fix the wage period either daily, weekly, fortnightly, or monthly, depending on the conditions. But however, no wage period in respect of any employee shall be more than a month. Anyway, this is again taken from the Payment of Wages Act, which was already existing. However, wherever it is a daily basis, payment has to be made at the end of the shift, and a weekly basis on the last working day of the week or before the weekly holiday, fortnightly basis before the end of the second day after the end of the fortnight, wherever it is a monthly basis before the expiry of the seventh day of the succeeding month. So that is how the disbursement of the wage is made. And further, where an employee has been removed or dismissed from service, or retrenched, or has resigned from the service, or became unemployed due to closure of the establishment, the wage payable to him shall be paid within 2 working days of his removal, dismissal, retrenchment, or as the case may be, even on his resignation. This is one of the new clause. Therefore, all must know about the wage, and accordingly, wage has to be paid within 2 days. Their process has to expedite in this matter. Now, next law is Payment of the Bonus Act, wherein section 26 to 41 in this code deals with the provisions relating to the payment of the bonus, and this act is to provide for the payment of bonus to employees on the basis of profits and loss, or on the basis of production or productivity. Payment of bonus will apply to employees whose wages do not exceed a monthly amount notified by the central or state governments. Presently, though there is a 21,000 rupees, anyway, government has indicated that they will come out with the figure. We are awaiting for that. We have to wait and see. Then, another provision in this, establishments to include departments, undertakings, and branches, where for any accounting year, a separate balance sheet and profit and loss account are prepared and maintained in respect of any such department or undertaking or branch, then such department or undertaking or branch shall be treated as a separate establishment for the purpose of computation of bonus under the code for that year. Friends, this is one way it is good. Wherever multi-units are there, some of the units may really do well and some of the centers may not really, they are making a profit or they may be under very bad shape. In all such cases, okay, this provision will really come to the help and do the needful. Further also, another relevant factor which has been included, that is in the disqualification of bonus, though already there is a clause regarding the disqualification of the bonus, one of the new clause, that is conviction for sexual harassment. So wherever any person is involved in this act, after all due process, if he or she is convicted for sexual harassment, that concerned person is liable for disqualification of the bonus. So that way care has been taken as per the modern trend and days. Then the employee whose wages do not exceed a specific monthly amount, which has to be already told notified by the government, will be entitled to an annual bonus. And bonus is payable on higher or minimum wage or the wage ceiling fixed by the appropriate government for the payment of the bonus. So that is how the payment of wages in this code, payment of bonus in this code. And further, non-applicability of bonus provisions are also added. So one has to go through and they have to see. Next, another law which has been subsumed in this code is Equal Remuneration Act. So this act provides for the payment of equal remuneration to men and women workers and for the prevention of discrimination on the ground of gender against women in the matter of employment and other related aspects. This code has taken care and stated and ensured prohibition of discrimination on the ground of gender has been taken out. So now everybody will be treated equal. There will be no discrimination on the gender point. Another relevant factor which one must be aware is inspection part. Some new we found here. Inspection now will be inspector now will be inspector cum facilitator. He has been renamed. The appointed inspector cum facilitator. He may advise employers and workers relating to compliance and also inspect the establishment as assigned by the appropriate government. So here it is advice is added. So therefore, he is a dual role. That way, it should help the employers. Many changes have been introduced in the inspection regime, including web-based, randomized, computerized inspection scheme. So code is very specific about this. And also jurisdiction-free inspections, calling of information electronically for inspection, composition of fines, etc. have been included. Further, all records, returns and notices under section 50, the government through notification can conduct web-based inspection and can call for any information electronically. That is in tune of the time. I think that this is really very good, and avoid the face-to-face or running to the department or to the authorities. Further, it has been also taken care in case of non-maintenance of improper records, the employer will be fined up to rupees 10,000. That is another clause we can see. Then fines and contracting out, they are also added here. Section 29 deals with the provision relating to the fines, and contracting out is also mentioned, which was earlier existing, and the employee cannot contract out his rights, or employer also has to take care. Then exemption of employer from liability in certain cases is also being taken care. Then next point, coming to the very relevant and useful provisions are, one has to understand what are all the responsibilities under the code. Ensuring payment of minimum wage and also the overtime wages wherever applicable. Then for dismissed and resigned employees, wages to be settled within 2 working days. Then adhering to the limits specified for deductions from the wages, 50%, which was earlier also there, the same thing is continuing. Complying with the limits relating to the working hours and provide days of rest and as specified in the Act. Then coming to the records and registers, maintenance of employee registers like muster roll, wage details in prescribed form, electronically and otherwise. Further, issuance of wage slips in prescribed form and manner to each of the employee is also the compliance part. Then notice of display is another compliance. Then a display of notice on the notice board at prominent place of the establishment. Further, display of the abstract category-wise rate of the wages, wage period, and also when needed or demanded, produced to the inspector cum facilitator. Then payment of dues on a death, in a death cases, dues to be paid to the person nominated or to be deposited with a specified authority. Presently, it is mentioned in central being Deputy Chief Labor Commissioner within 3 months to 6 months time. So this is also one of the compliance point in that. Then responsibilities in case of burden of the proof, where a claim has been filed on account of non-payment of remuneration or bonus or less payment of wages or bonus on account of making deduction not authorized by this code from the wages of an employee. Here, the burden to prove that the said dues have been paid shall be on the employer. Therefore, my dear friends, employer has to be accurate and maintain all these records properly, check, verify with the proper scrutiny, thereby know all the time they are on right and safe side. Then what are all the areas of the focus? Let us see. Some of the points come to my mind. Understand the provisions of the codes and identify changes required in the policy and the procedures wherever that is applicable, that is need of the hour. Then quantify financial impact. Quantify the potential financial impact of the provisions of the labor codes. Then discuss amongst employer, stakeholders, and communicate to stakeholders on potential impact and the changes required. The whole idea of all these information dissemination by various forums, professionals, channels, etc. is to make understand and know by all the stakeholders. Then further, one of the focus area is contracts review. Review third-party contracts in terms of principal employer obligations, which is very important. It needs visit and revisit. Further, changes in compensation structure, because wage is going to be affected as per the definition. One has to go through in detail, examine and comply to the provision of the code. Then balancing is also required under the Income Tax Act and the labor codes from employer compensation structuring perspectives. Further, to ensure employees' retirals are not negatively impacted. This is one of the things one has to really apply their mind and go into the details. Further, employee communication is most important. Since it is a new code, lot of difficulties, doubts, problems, hindrances may arise, which is but natural. In this process, communicate, communicate, communicate. WTH, that is, wait, what we take home, that is very, very important. With all this wage definition, directly it may affect on take home pay. Therefore, what we take home, that is WTH, is most important. Any amount of communication to the employees associations, unions, particularly at the lower rung, workman level, is most important. and therefore one has to equip with all those points. And also to keep employees informed of their entitlements under the labor codes. That is also one of the areas of the focus, which is need of the hour. Then what will be the possible challenges on code of wages? Number one, wage definition. Interpreting wage definition and computation of wages for employees whose salary fluctuations on a month-on-month basis because of some of the components in that. Then contractors compliance. Proper contractor compliance and payment of necessary dues to the contractor is also need of the hour. Meticulously one has to see. Friends, you have already hearing in the media, in the press as well as in electronics media that recently one of the multinational company, how this non-compliance by the third party or contractor has really affected the reputation as well as the organizations and under the anger of the workers, we are all aware. So therefore, compliance of the contractor is the most important. That's why all the time it is suggested vendors audit. Then deduction from the wage. Capping deduction from wages up to a maximum of 50% of the total wages during the wage period, which is already taken from the payment of wages, which is already the existing law. So with this, what are all that further? What will happen? Then actions to be triggered on this thing is salary structure. So is your current compensation structure, is it built primarily on a tax efficiency? We have to check and verify. Will the provisions under the labor codes necessitate a revisiting? This is another important point. From both angles, it has to be studied and examined. Then impact on retirement benefits, like what will be the effect of the new wage definition on quantum provided on provident fund contributions and gratuity entitlements. This has to be studied, understood and informed. Then also identify gaps and exposure. How do your current policies, process and procedures map with the requirements in relation to the labor code? So any amount of application of mind is inadequate and one has to do. Sufficient care has to be taken. Have you built in the technology solutions expected for compliance envisaged in the code? Because everything is mentioned web-based. So therefore, technology-based is also one of the need of the hour. Everything has to be taken into the considerations. Then actions to be triggered, salary from an employer point of view. Then financial impact. Will the changes in the wage definitions have a hit on the financial statement of the company? Will extension of coverage for overtime impact your profit and loss account? What would be the exposure? Steps required to meet the additional cost. So these are all some of the actions to be triggered as far as financial impact is concerned. And with all these things, points for consideration are, as defined the wage under section 2I, computation of bonus under the code or payment of wages for overtime work would also fluctuate and get impacted. Monthly variations in components that will impact on statutory contribution also, which one must watch and keep an eye on that. And accordingly, prepare the statements and audit. Then inclusion of benefits in kind. Law also states if they are more than 15%, then over and above that has to be added in the basic as far as the inclusion of the benefits in kind is concerned. Therefore here, what is the valuation methodology? So that is need of the hour. Then the treatment of accrued benefits also. Next is proviso in employee definitions coverage. Already we told employee definition is wider. Now everybody is going to be covered. It has to be seen. Then managerial employee covered for the overtime because it is all applicable for that. Naturally, there is a cost and some impact will be there. So point has to be considered. Then applicability to international workers has to be seen. Of course, there may be some lack of clarity. Possibility of litigations may come, but however, one by one, all may be resolved as the time goes. Next, then further, with all these things, what is that further we have to do? Clearly laid down provisions backed up by practical illustrations, leaving no room for ambiguity. With all the practical examples, working, reworking has to be shown, told, explained repeatedly. Doubts have to be clarified, and it should be made known to all the concerned, those who are all involved and affected. Then review widening of coverage of the codes, that is applicability of overtime, working hours, etc., etc. It will go without saying because the compliance of the law. Clear transition provisions to ensure seamless changeover, because it is a change management, because changeover will happen. Anyway, it is all everybody's experience. Whenever there is a change, lot of problems, ill will, doubts, misunderstanding, possibilities will be there. So therefore, it has to go in a seamless changeover. Then vesting responsibility on contractors for compliance. So special care and insistence has to be done on this. Accordingly, contractors have also to be educated. They should be informed about the perspectives, applicability, and all the clarifications to be provided to them. Would there be any flexibility in applying provisions relating to the work from home? Of course, now it is all hybrid working started, which is a new concept. Anyway, law is right now, it is silent on that. But any flexibility on this, everything, it is need of the hour to think and examine, find out the ways and means, and also to suggest to the lawmakers. And also gig workers, given these are new concepts in this. Gig workers are also covered for the social security, etc. So all these will have a further what to do, one has to think on that. The impact on all these, thus, the code is being hailed as a historic step in the labor reforms and also ease of doing business in India without affecting or diluting any basic rights of the employees. Anyway, nowhere employees' rights have been affected. That is one good thing of all these codes, including COW. And further, the code aims for enforcement of labor laws with a transparency and accountability. And it is expected to reduce the cost of compliance for employers significantly. Of course, so many multiplicity of registers, records, returns have been reduced in all these things. That is really good. Under the new labor codes, devise practical systems and procedures for introducing measures for the unorganized workers, especially the migrant workers have also come. So this is what one has to add and take care on that. Further, the compliance of labor law is as important for good corporate governance like other corporate, economic and securities laws, and prevent unwanted litigation and penalty for non-compliance and avoid risk. So this is what everybody's insistence and the perspective should be on this. And it is important for employers to familiarize themselves with the code and understand the impact on their operations, directly and indirectly. The employer should also analyze the requirement of revision of the salary structure as per the new definition of the term wage. Further, HR policies of the organization shall be revised as per the provisions of the code to ensure that all the time their policies are HR friendly and legally all the time compliant. Further, the employer has to ensure the observance of health, safety, welfare and conditions of service by the professional managers and their supervisors and their other team in their organization, especially the payment of national minimum wage. which you are all awaiting now. Friends, now having passed this course, already draft rules have been circulated, and already for the forming of the advisory board has been already gazette has been issued. Some of the excerpts of the rules by the central under the curve are manner of calculating the minimum rate of wages under the rule 3 notified, and the norms for fixing of minimum rate of wages in rule 4 they have also been made, and also the cost of living that has been how it is to be there is also already brought out. Then manner of fixing floor wage is also elucidated in the provision. Then the forms, registers and wage slip what should be there as far as the compliance points have been also notified in the rules. Now all the concerned have to now update, get conversant in coming days, and they have to follow on all these things, and accordingly they have to go and implement in their organizations. Well friends, these are all some of the new perspectives and the thoughts and views I thought I should really share with you. My dear friends, if you are really benefited by these points and if they are really useful for you, please share to all your team, your friends and all the concerned. And about your views and observations, please post your comments in the comment box of the video without fail. And also don't forget to subscribe. So friends, with this, thank you very much for all your patient listening, and wait for my further videos on various other topics. Thank you very much. Good day.